In this lesson, we're going to be pulling in our second Photoshop document into After Effects as a composition. In our previous lesson, we're able to finish off our first clip, and now we're going to be pulling in our second clip. So let's go ahead and go to our project panel. Let's just double click in this dead space to pull in our Reuben Skateboarding PSD. Make sure it's the PSD, making sure also that we retain the layer sizes. Let's hit import, and then we get this second dialog, just making sure that we know what we're doing. Yes, we want to retain the layer sizes, and let's hit OK. Let's double click on our Reuben comp, and that will open up our PSD as a composition. And you can see that we do have 3 seconds for the length of this composition. If you don't, let's just right click, and you're going to go to your composition settings, and you're going to make that adjustment right here in your duration. And let's also take a look, make sure that our layers are where they are supposed to be. Everything is set up correctly. Great. All right, so we have our background layer, which we called it Reuben originally. I'm actually going to, let's just rename this background. It's kind of confusing. And then we have our skater. We'll start with our skater. We're going to grab our puppet pencil, and we're going to just click right here. We're going to click about in the neck area. And then we're going to click on the shoulder, and you can zoom in also if you'd like. And we're going to click right about here in the elbow, and then on the hand. And we're also going to move over to this hand, and then add a pin kind of right here in the shoulder. And then we'll also add one here in the hip. And we're going to add another pin down here at the base. So we'll add one like right here where the skateboard is. Awesome. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to map out how we want our skater to move. So when we create these pins, then right now they're in their default position. But what we can do is we can set them up to where his hands are kind of moving. So maybe in the first of our timeline, in the beginning of our timeline, maybe this arm is pulled down a little bit, and this hand and arm are pulled up. So I'll grab the elbow first and pull that up, and then pull up that hand, about like that. And then let's see if I need to make any other changes. How about if we actually even take all those pins? So I'm going to hit Shift. I'm going to grab all these pins right here. I'm going to just take that, his torso, and just kind of pull it down a little bit. Just a little bit, but not so much that he's completely distorted. And then I'm going to come all the way to the end. I'm going to hit Reset, and so you can see right here where the puppet is in this layer, if we hit Reset, it's going to push those pins to their original position. So what we want to make sure of, though, is that he is not being completely distorted. I'm going to turn off my mesh just so I can take a look at his torso. So I don't see any major deformations that would cause concern. I think everything looks good. I'm going to come down, take a look at his feet, make sure that that's not changing too much. Great. All right, so we are happy with that, but we're going to make just a little bit more of an adjustment. So we're actually going to take his arm. I'm going to move that up just a little bit more. So I'm actually going to click this pin first just to kind of deselect the others. I'm going to push this hand up a little bit more, and then take this hand and move it down a little bit more. About like that. Great. And then we're now going to focus on our shirt detail here. So let's zoom in a little bit. And so in this animation, you can see he's kind of skating around, and we have a lot of wrinkles in his shirt. And I imagine that those would probably be moving a little bit as he's skating down and jumping up and just kind of going across this rail. So what we're going to do is we're going to move his shirt around using our liquify tool. So in your effects and presets, just start to type out liquify, and then that will pull up under the distort for our effects. Double click on that with our layer selected. I'm going to use just the first warp tool. So that's this first one that has a picture of a hand pushing down. And let's go ahead and open up our warp tool options and bring the brush size way down to about 14. I'm also going to increase that pressure up to about 89. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the beginning of my timeline and just kind of take a look at the movement that we're getting here. I'm going to take his shirt. I'm going to just push these wrinkles down about like that. Maybe even take this and push it in. And I'm going to take his shirt and just push that down as well. Push down these wrinkles so that as he's skating, then we'll create the illusion that these wrinkles have kind of moved a little bit, because we're now going to come down to the end and we're going to reset that mesh. So actually, let's create our keyframe for our distortion mesh at the beginning. We'll go to the end and then we'll just reset that mesh. So just hit reset. And so it works similarly to the puppet pin tool in that we created our keyframe, and then we also were able to keyframe that shirt moving. You can see it's almost like it's kind of rippling a little bit in the wind. Just a little bit of movement there. Awesome. All right, now we can focus on our skater, his position. So this one will be kind of complex just because we are moving his shadow along with the skateboarder, but it shouldn't be a problem because we're going to grab the skater and the shadow, hit P on the keyboard, and we're going to create a keyframe. And let's just come all the way down to the end of our timeline and we'll create that keyframe. Then we'll go up to the beginning and we're just going to push him up along that rail. So we're just going to take this back wheel and we're just going to take it and just kind of line it up with this pole right about in there. And let's zoom in, make sure that our shadow isn't leaving our pole. Looks like we need to move that down just a hair, about like that. So it's lined up with that pole. And so when we just come down, then there's not a whole lot of movement, but it's just enough. It's just enough to kind of give us that effect. So now that we have our shirt moving, we have our skateboarder moving, then let's go ahead and hit 0 on our keyboard. Awesome. That looks great. Now all we have to do is let's just add a little bit of a camera pan. So let's go ahead and select, click this little toggle switch to get our 3D layers back. We're going to go ahead and turn all of our layers into 3D. And then we're going to go to Layer, New, Camera. And we don't need to name it, but we can if we want. We can call it Skater Cam or something like that. And we're going to create a keyframe. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we know, so we have just a little bit of area down here at the bottom that we can zoom in on. So let's, or pan. So let's create that keyframe for the very beginning of our, for our position, for our camera. Create that keyframe. We'll move all the way down to the end. And we're going to just grab that Y value, and we're going to just adjust it just a little bit up. And so what this will do is, since our skateboarder is moving down, then our camera is like barely moving down as well, just kind of trying to follow him. Just like that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and take a RAM preview of that. Great. Looks awesome. All right. So now we have our skateboarder skating down and raising up a little bit. And so we have this nice slow effect. And in our next lesson, we'll be focusing on our third and final clip.